Hi everybody, welcome to the latest instalment of the End of Celts podcast. Hope everyone's well who's listening. This is our end of season special. We have a full set tonight, so all six of us, members of the End of Celts podcast, are on. My co-host John, Anthony, Ross, William, Francis. How are you all?
Hi, all
Yeah,
good.
good, my man.
Yeah.
No worries at all, lads. We've got plenty to talk about, and as I said on the post and stuff on Instagram, this is our version of what we think went wrong. Everyone obviously has different opinions and stuff. And we'll try and keep it lighthearted, even though this season has been a bit of depression for all of us. Really, it's been a shambles. But we'll try and put a wee lighthearted spin on it, have a laugh about certain things as well, and try and bring a bit of joy to everyone, and hopefully have a laugh while we're doing this episode. So we'll go back right to the start, where it all starts. We've seen that summer of this season, well, now over, of course, but we signed the Adidas sponsorship, so that was a good thing, wasn't it, for everybody? The record, I think it was a record deal in Scottish football. Adidas come to the Scotland with Celtic. Then we move on, obviously. Neil Lennon's in charge, and then we get to the transfer window. And by all accounts, fair enough to the board, they did back us. The likes of Moya Lucy come back, Barkas, Albinieri, maybe not proven as much at West Ham in the Premier League, but he had a fantastic time at Ball in the Swiss League. And then David Turnbull, a guy who we were after for a long, long time. And unfortunately, this season before, we didn't get him due to injury, but we stuck with him. Shane Duffy, a proven Irish international, proven defender at English Premier League level. Diego Laxalt, another Uruguayan international, European pedigree, was in the World Cup Team of the Year in 2018. So all the sayings at that time pointed to a start of a good window, the start of a good season. And at that time, I'll come to you, Ross yourself first. How did you feel at that window? I mean, that famous tweet, of course, everyone goes back to when the Celtic Twitter account put up, well, that's a hell of a transfer window, or something along them lines. That hasn't aged well. But back then, we were all thinking it, weren't we?
Oh, absolutely. I was very satisfied with the business we done. I mean, obviously, I didn't know too much about what do you call him again? You just mentioned him, the striker. That's how good he is. I didn't know too much about him. Same with Barkas, but it was big fees, and everything looked rosy in the garden. But I mean, we all know what happened after that.
Well, that's very true. That's something we're going to get stuck into as well. But if you look at it, I mean, Albinieri was what, second choice to the famous now guy Ivan Toney down in the Championship with Brentford, who done as a turner. And it's like when you look at them types of things, missing out on a striker like that, he was in the building, of course, and then we signed Albinieri for $5 million. I think we just needed 600,000 more to get Toney over the line, Anthony. And at the start, when you see them, you don't really think about that, because you looked at, as I said to Ross, you look at the players there, and they're all of good pedigree. Granted that Toney was a good goal scorer and stuff for Peterborough, but there was people questioning if he can make that step up. And the Celtic board did go with a proven goal scorer, maybe not, as I said, in the Premier League, but definitely in the Swiss League anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, when you look at that transfer, those transfer deals on paper, every box is ticked, which only makes the full, debacle of what followed even more puzzling. With regards to Toney, there seems to be a sort of kind of talk among Celtic supporters just now, and the common thing is to say that to really go. I mean, and I'm more than happy to criticise the board if and when I believe it's justified. With regards to the Toney deal, though, there's a bit of me that's a bit sort of. I'm willing to stand back and not criticise him as much as what others are, because even Toney was in the building. We know that. That's been made as it's been classed as a fact that he was in the building, and yes, that the deal couldn't be done. And of course, he's went on to do great things at Brentford. But there is absolutely no guarantee that Ivan Toney, if he had signed for Celtic this season, would have looked anywhere like the kind of player that he is looking like down south at the minute. If you look at the form of Odsonne Edouard for the last couple of seasons, and still his form when you look at him in the French under-21s, and then look at even Odsonne when he's playing for Celtic just now, it's night and day. So I don't think, even if we had signed Toney, that it necessarily would have been this. He would have shone the way he has down south, purely because of the all the other, the famous phrase, mitigating factors surrounding our club at the minute. No one, if Odsonne Edouard looks as off as he does currently, then I don't see what Ivan Toney would have been any different.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because it's all with hindsight. We're looking back in this season, and as you said, all the other factors that Celtic faced, the problems would have still existed whether Tony were there or not, and that's fair enough. And coming to yourself, John, the likes of El-Nusi coming back again for a second loan stint. You get the Diego Laxalt coming in. We were screaming out for a left back. We've been trying to replace Kieran Tierney for ages, and it just hasn't quite happened. What were you thinking and at that time anyway, around about the transfer window? Were you confident going into this new season?
No, yeah, I think I was the same as, I'm sure we'll all be in agreement that the board did, they spent money, and like you say, we brought in a number of players. So, I mean, you certainly at that point of the season, during that window, you're thinking, right, okay, so that's us getting it set up, and we're making a push for the 10. But as we've seen, ultimately, a few of the signings have been absolute failures. I've been vocal previously. I rate El-Nusi. I think he's a great player. So I was happy to see him come back. Didn't know anything about Laxalt. Didn't know anything about Barkas really, other than times he's played against us. And yeah, so I mean, I was happy with the signings, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, for me anyway, I'm a bit of a Google geek when it comes to new signings. So I did a lot of videos on Barkas and the likes of Vieti about their times at different clubs, the likes of AEK Athens, Basel as well. And you sort of get a feel. Obviously, the famous player was signed from video was Raphael Shiite, and he turned out to be shite. So you don't always go by video. But coming to yourself, Francis, we always talk about Barkas. He can be a keeper. I've seen it especially. I know YouTube clips left a lot to be desired, but again, he was in a team that was winning trophies. He's got a good European pedigree. He's been number one for Greece for about a year and a half when we signed him. So that transfer window for me, especially the likes of Shane Duffy and also getting David Turnbull, it was a good one because you're signing promising players, but also players with experience, which we needed at that time.
Oh yeah, I like what the guys were saying there. I think we addressed every position that we really needed to address, and we signed, like what the boys were saying there, on paper we signed guys of real pedigree, real calibre. And then I think an also important bit of business is we kept players like Edward, like Encham, guys that were rumoured to be walked away with, like Christie, even though you don't rate him either. But I think on memory, it's one of the best transfer windows I believe we've ever had. But it couldn't have turned out any worse.
And it's true, like, because as you said there, we're all in agreement, and come to William last here, but we're all in agreement that the likes of the transfer window was great at the time. But we were backed upwards of £20 million, so your big fees there as well, and especially the loan fee for Shane Duffy. I think altogether it cost the club £3 million, obviously including a bit part of his wages as well. William, but is there any part of that transfer window for you that is a letdown? Now, I'm talking looking back in hindsight now. Do you think we should have took the gamble on the likes of Tony and left the Eddie? Obviously, David Moyes famously said he didn't know who he was. So that's a warning sign already when you're signing players like that, surely.
I'm not so sure about that, to be honest with you. Tony made a great point about Ivan Toney. I don't know if he would have made much of a difference for the way the team's been going about their task this year. Even if you disregard the guys that have came in, the guys that have been performing for us for the last 3-4 years haven't performed this year either. So I think that tells you everything. With regards to Yeti, I think there's a player there. When he first came in, he was hitting the ground running. He was only getting an hour 20 or the last 20 minutes of a game, and he scored. He had a decent scoring record when he first came in. He was scoring goals for fun, and he picked up an injury, and we've just not seen much of him again. So we could all be sitting raving this time next year, and yet he's banging them in for fun. So I think it's just one of these seasons. Again, I echo everything everybody was saying. I think it was at the time a great transfer window for us. I was more than pleased. The only thing I was a bit unhappy about was we didn't sign another right winger, because I think Forrest was injured at the time, or we didn't have cover if he did get injured. So I think that was the only disappointment. But I think remembering back at the time, I think they did try and get another winger and it just didn't materialise. So yeah, at the time I was more than happy, and if you've got some of these guys staying, I think they might show their worth. I really think there's a player in Yeti. I think he's a proper goal scorer, but we've just not seen any of it, unfortunately, the last 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, I mean, one game in particular stands out was the European game. He played against Lille and he was fantastic, and we'll touch upon that later. But we're all in agreement there that the transfer window was a great window. Obviously, wingers and stuff left a wee bit to be desired because James Forrest and Mikey Johnson, you need to at least sign a replacement there to some of the come in. But moving forward, the first things that come along that's going to be along this season is the European qualifiers. We started out in the first qualifying round for the UEFA Champions League. Our first draw was against KR Reykjavik, and we hammered them 6-0. El Nusi got 2 goals. One of their team scored an own goal, Julian Taylor and Edward with the rest. Then move on to the second qualifying round, and we get beat by a Hungarian team, Furnace Faros. Chrissy scored for us, and obviously they win the game 2-1 and they go through. Now, come to yourself, Anthony. I think this was the game Lennon came out and said that there's certain players who don't want to be around Celtic or that they're making moves to leave. Me personally, looking back on that was a major statement to come out with, and I think from that then on in, some players kind of threw the head up.
And I'll be honest, yeah, you're right. And to be honest, I don't actually blame them either. No matter how bad the situation is in the dressing room, call me old school, but I think it should stay in the dressing room. Neil Lennon's behaviour that night was deplorable, quite frankly. And I think, I must admit, a lot of people say, "Oh, that was when it really started to, the wheels started to come off." I don't know what it was, but I think a couple of weeks before that, I can't remember exactly what interview it was. I think it might have been the interview when he was discussing Lee Griffiths' fitness, and it just, there just looked like there was something not right behind the scenes. And when he done that interview, although at the time you thought it's fine, it's the start of the season, we had this last year and we sorted it out. I must admit, that was when I did think we were in trouble. That's how early on in the season that I really started to worry, because, and then but after that game, the following Saturday, he then raved about how great they were, and that they were I think we played Hibs the following match, and he was saying about how it was some of the best performance, one of the best performances that he'd had since he came to the club. So it was this sort of erratic, up and down yo-yo type of interviews that kind of set the tone. But it was all set, like you say, that night post-match after a shocking result, quite frankly, against a side that we really should be putting away. Because I don't actually, if I remember correctly, did they not have a few players out with coronavirus? Yeah. So it was essentially the Ferencváros reserve side that we were playing, and couldn't get the job done.
I mean, that's a trend that continues into the Slavia Prague games as well, but we'll get on to them. Then, obviously, you're saying there about the comments and the behaviour of Lenny that night was, I mean, it was bad, like, when you look at it, and how flippant he made them comments, and then he switches his mind in the next game week. Well, we'll get on to the league form after we cover the Europe side of things, because, I mean, we can all agree the European kind of ended quick, so we can get through this. But coming to yourself, William, when you're out of the Champions League at that early stage, and them comments are being made, and you can already see disconnect between manager, players, fans, and the board at that time as well. Are you much in agreement with Anthony? That's when major problems started to begin.
Yeah, that first interview where he started calling the players out, it just causes unrest straight away. Not just among the squad and the playing staff, but among fans as well. We want to see people, guys playing for the shirt. So when you're hearing stuff like that, it's not going to make you feel comfortable either. I think that was the beginning of the downward spiral, to be honest with you. Even this, it was the start of what was a continuing story of our season. The goals conceded, again, it was like frailties at the set pieces, and it was another counter-attack. If I remember right, it was long ball over the top, and El Hamed was in no man's land. Just the start of what our defensive frailties looked like for the remainder of the season. And I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they put Christie up front.
Did I?
And we had Ayeti and Klamala and these new guys on the bench. If they're not fit, see this, I cannot stand this. If they're not fit enough, for me, if you're not fit enough, give them the first half and let them do the damage first, and then bring them off if you need to. So yeah, that was the beginning of these tactical naiveties, and and the start of the defensive frailties that we continue to see for the rest of the season. If you're a player and you're in that dressing room and the manager's coming out publicly, I'm with Tony on this one. That should be kept in house. If you're doing that publicly, him as a manager, he needs to take that criticism, that flack. He can't be doing that in the public eye. So it seemed like it was, and that was so early on in the season, and you're still at that point. You're thinking, oh, wait a minute here.
Yeah, and you're exactly right there. I mean, you look at the defensive frailty Celtic experienced, and it's been from set pieces, easy to break down, teams that can get in behind. But seeing Shane Duffy in some European games get ripped apart and by your man, as Karlberg Larsen or something like that anyway, for Slavia Prague, taking for a run. But coming to yourself, Ross, how would you feel as a footballer that early on at stage in the season, and your manager's coming out and saying, look, these players don't want to be here, basically saying they don't care about this club. They want away as quick as possible, want to go to pastures new. Would that affect you as a player, thinking from inside how they would feel?
I mean, if I was one of the players that were like the so-called want-aways, right away you'd be in the back foot. Like, he's just like, he's no said by name, but I mean, it wasn't his finest hour, was it? He made a rod for his own back for that moment on. It was just, I really don't know why he done it. There was never going to be a positive outcome for it. I mean, they weren't playing great before he done that, and then after it, they were even worse. But even at, like, apart from like the Hamilton game, they were sort of getting out of jail at times. I think one of the last times they properly salvaged a match, and the way that we've sort of been accustomed to for Celtic when the chips are down, was probably the the game at McDermott Park when Griffiths and Klimala came on and got 2 late goals. And then the very next game, we lost at home to Rangers pretty much without laying a glove on them, and it just never improved for then on in. I mean, the comments for Lennon, they weren't the only reason, obviously, that the season went wrong, but I mean, by God, they certainly didn't help. You could just add that to a very long list of things that happened. But I mean, if I'm a player and he's doing that, I'm just like, well, F you, basically. You know what I mean? I'm not going to try a leg, but not going to. I'm kind of reluctant to say that, not going to try a leg, because us as fans have slated the players for no trying a leg. All right, he didn't go on with the manager, but you still want to, for professional pride. But it's difficult to say how I would react in that situation, not having been in it. But I would like to think that I would still have professional pride. But it's just a difficult one to talk about. It's just been shit.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. We can end the show there. It's just been shit. I mean, it sums up the whole season. It's how we feel as Celtic fans. But Francis, coming back to the comments, looking at a different side of this, right? Some old school managers used to get reactions out of players by calling them out or calling out their performances. Do you think maybe Neil Lennon was trying that? Because as Anthony said, he flipped his comments again the next game week, saying, "Oh, these group of players are amazing. Love them all. They're the best ever." But do you think he was trying for a reaction and it just didn't work? They kind of just fell flat, and it was like, "Shit, I need to do a different tact here."
I'm not. No, I think he actually meant the comments, because your modern day player now, unfortunately, just they need mollycoddle, don't they? You can't really get away with sort of calling players out now. I mean, I will defend Lennon. Maybe he, like, I'm only guessing here. Maybe he wanted some of these players moved on because he seen there were unrest in the dressing room and stuff, and it never happened. But then to come out after a poor performance and say some guys don't want to be here on the back of that, you just can't do that these days. It's like what Anthony and William said, just keep it in house. You keep that stuff in house, and then I just think when you make those sort of comments public, it's players, like Ross said, you would expect to have a bit of professional, but I don't think they'll kind of go to war for you, if you like, to use that kind of analogy. I don't think they would give that extra 10% when they really need to. They might shirk out a tackle here and there, because they're like, well, and manager's digging me out. So, oh well, I'll not really properly put it in for him. But yeah, maybe it was because but to go back to your question, maybe he was trying to get a reaction, because he is a wee bit old school and sort of a motivator type manager. But yeah, you just can't get away with it. And the fact that, like you said, he made these comments, played the exact same team the following game, and then built them up to the hill after that. And I'm like, what way is it? And that was, I mean, that rolled onto the goalkeeping situation and everything. It was just, like Anthony said, it just was the tone of interviews all season. It was one week somebody was getting either battered or backed up, then the following week it was just the complete opposite. It was it was not good.
You're 100% right, because for me, we all can't deny, right? We have to be honest here. We all have some fantastic, amazing memories in Neil Lennon, from playing, from managing the first time around, obviously seeing in the quadruple treble, bringing us over the line when Rodgers left. We do have fantastic memories of him, John. Do you think, looking back at them comments, much as I said to Francis, is there an upside to them? Because sometimes you're maybe in a situation where you've dug a hole for yourself. I mean, I've been in a situation before with you guys. I'm just throwing out comments left, right, and centre, and you're biting back. But do you think that maybe he was just trying to get fire in the belly again? Just instead of shouting at him in the dressing room, call him out in the public, make the fans aware this is going on, and hopefully getting a reaction throughout the season. But obviously, well, things like that didn't work. But at that time, do you think that's what he was trying?
I believe that might be what he was trying to do. But as Anthony says, and I fully agree, is you keep that in the house. If you want to you have a go at certain individuals for no playing well, or the individuals that you believe weren't they playing well, and for whatever reason, do it in the dressing room. Do you know what I mean? Like, do it on the training ground. Like, keep it out the public eye, because, like he says, it then just creates unrest, and it's not just his comments that say that. It's like people jump on it. We know that anybody that says anything, once the media gets hold of it, it spreads, and then it's like you then get fans jump on the back of it. You'll get some that will defend Lennon for doing it, and they'll jump on the players' backs as well. So it can definitely be negative, especially like we use this term nowadays about players being a bit different, and Francis says they're like sort of mollycoddled to an extent. But I think that the rise of social media plays a large part in that, because you can't hide from it now. Before, it was a case of maybe just reading it in the paper or whatever, but it's everywhere now. So players can get contacted on their media accounts. Players can get quite a lot of abuse for certain things. And I think that if you're stoking a fire by coming out with the comments to the press, like right after that, then that's just that's a serious problem, and it should never have happened in the first place.
Can I just jump in for a second as well? See what like talking about him, like it was intentional and trying to get a fire in the belly. I tend to think that, like, Neil Lennon's a very emotional character, and he was obviously very angry after the game. And if you're getting a microphone stuck in your face right after the game and you're full of that emotion, I think it's just, you're angry and you say things out of that anger, and I think he's maybe regretted it afterwards. But it would be really interesting to see if, one, the players he was talking about knew that he was talking about them, and two, the rest of the playing squad knew who he was talking about also, because that's going to cause unrest straight away. Even if it's in a training, say they're all training, for example, and he says, right, see, you, they don't want to be here. Like, that's obviously going to cause unrest. So if that's what's happened, then that's not a good start to the season. And a manager should be, like, in any walk of life, I'm not just talking about football, they should know, they need to spot the people that they can say, right, you need to kick up the arse, you're not hitting your targets or whatever, you're not doing what you need to be doing. And he needs to spot the people that need an arm around the shoulder and saying, right, what's happening, is everything alright at home, whatever, like, you know what I mean? That's what a man manager does, and it seems to me like Lennon doesn't have that in his locker.
Well,
that's a good point. Can I just say as well, just in addition to that, if you look at, like William said there, and I think he explained it perfectly, these players, by and large, Lennon's come in and took on a team who were managed under Rodgers, who is, by all accounts, a fantastic man manager, who is exactly as William said, the kind of guy who can identify who's maybe having issues and then put them around them and work with them one-on-one. and try and get them better and bring the best out in them and work on what their issues is and everything like that. Whereas Lennon's a polar opposite. So you've got these guys who have spent a couple of seasons, maybe under Rodgers and etc., dealing with this, and then they're immediately thrust into getting absolutely hounded after the likes of Lennon, and not just in the dressing room, but in the public eye as well. And that can have an effect on somebody if they're not used to it.
And also, like, there's like we talk about how the like heads go down and that as well. I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure Christopher Ayer was one of the names mentioned that he was a want away. And there's not one game I've seen him this year where he's not given his all for the shirt. So that's another way of looking at it. How like some people take that boot up the arse and go right, and then there's others that don't. And that for me is man management, and I don't think Lennon had that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you make a good point in regards to Ayer and certain players. Obviously, some of them took it. We all know Ayer was one who was like moves away, and I kind of disagree with him. When there was certain games he was left to be wanting. So I mean, he can't give us all, but he has to do his performances as well. I mean, I could give all my effort for Celtic and not look good, but as long as you're playing for the badge, do you know what I mean? But if you look at it now, we drop into the third round of the Europa League. We get drew with Riga. A Latvian team win 1-0. El Nusi scores into the playoff round. We play Sarajevo and Edouard scores, and now we're in the group stage. We get drawn in the group with Milan, Lille, now champions of France, Sparta Prague, and us Celtic. And for me anyway, I was confident in that group because the year before we finished top with Lazio, we toppled Lazio twice, and in this group as well, we did put up some fantastic performances against the likes of Lille. We drew 2 each with them at their ground, and then we beat them 3-2 at ours. I mean, neither are the champions of France, but obviously it comes with a caveat. Against Milan, we get beat 3-1. Sparta Prague, back-to-back defeats, and as Tony alluded to before, with Ferencváros, a weakened team. Again, Sparta Prague had a weakened team. It was basically their reserves. Milan beat us 4-2 in the San Siro. But mainly talking about the Sparta Prague games, or even your overall feeling towards the group itself, and I expressed my confidence anyway. Francis, how did you feel with that group? Because, as I said, with looking back on it, we did finish top of a group with the likes of Lazio and stuff in it. By all accounts, a good European team, good traditions in Serie A. I was quietly confident, but obviously the games turned out differently.
I had a bit of confidence. I wouldn't say I was really confident, because then it was a shocker of a group, to be fair. To be fair, what we got, it was a shocker, but I still had a wee bit of confidence we get through it. The AC Milan games are just, they were, although they finished, I think they ended up dying off near the end of the season, but they got off to a great start to the season. Zlatan was just being Zlatan again. So I really thought if you could get in it from the games, you'd be doing all right. And in fairness, in big spells of both the games, we actually done all right against AC Milan. I think the Lille game where we won 3-2, I'm pretty sure Lille were through in that and couldn't actually top the group, so it's a wee bit of dead rubber for them. On memory, I don't know how strong their team is, but it was kind of good just to actually register a win in the group. I mean, the Sparta Prague games, the less we talk about them, the better. But I wouldn't say I was overly confident in the group, but considering how Lennon had done the previous season, I was kind of confident with his tactics, because where I've kind of always been consistent with Lennon and Rodgers, I have felt a wee bit in Europe, Lennon's tactics have, I think in the main, have been better than Rodgers throughout his career. But it was just one of these seasons, was it? It was just nothing, just struggled ever to put two performances together, and it was just another poor European campaign, to be fair.
I am aware, obviously, for the people who are listening. Obviously, I want to do the European campaign first, and then we'll move on to the domestic side of things. The reason because the European campaign, just cover it quickly, then we can move on to the fan protest and all sorts. So I'm not forgetting any of that for anyone who's listening. But coming to yourself, John, mainly these Sparta Prague games, around about this time, there was heat on Lennon, especially from league form, and we were on that kind of disastrous run where it was like 2 wins in 10 or whatever it was. And for me, anyway, I was calling for Lennon's head, and them Sparta Prague games to me stand out like a sore thumb. 4-1 away, beat us 4-1 at Celtic Park as well. One of their players score a hat-trick, Jules, or Jules, whatever way his name's pronounced. But how were you feeling with that group? As Francis said, it was a bit of a shocker. It was like labelled group of death, but I was still confident anyway.
Yeah, no, there was an element of confidence. I know we've had some fantastic games against AC Milan in European competition in previous years, and I think although doing enough to qualify for Europe, they've not been performing particularly great in the Serie A. So there was always a bit of, you might be able to get a couple of results against them at home. I think we're all relatively confident we could get results at home. Sparta, you would have expected us, with all respect to them, they obviously proved us wrong. Even their B team absolutely scalped us. So, but initially, I think that Sparta, you were expecting to take 6 points off. You'd maybe be able to get another 3 at home against Milan and Lille. And like I says, Lille at the time, I don't think any of us would have expected them to go on and then win the French league. But we got 2 relatively good results against them in that group. A draw away and then beating them at home. So, I mean, I think on paper, there was definitely enough, or at least originally for me anyway, to say I think we could definitely get enough points out of this to be able to qualify, even if it was a second place qualification. But again, when you get results like you're getting beat back to back 4-1 off Sparta, you knew instantly then that it was just set to fail. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and as we said there, Francis, actually do take your point there in regards to Lennon in European football. He has had some good results. Obviously, the one that stands out is the Barcelona game, and his tactics, fair enough, have been okay at some stages. But coming to yourself, Ross, we just I know I said the Sparta Prague games, the Milan game 3-1, we drew over in France, which was a good result. At least he got both goals in that night. But you look at round about that time anyway, when the 2 back-to-back 4-1s against Sparta Prague came in. That for me, that was my turning point. Where I was like, Lennon needs to go here, and it wasn't me being harsh. It was just looking at it, and you could see what was going to unfold, especially after we go back to the comments that he made. And then this is getting worse. The fans are starting to put pressure on by protesting. How were you feeling around about this time?
I just exactly the same as yourself. I think the writing was on the wall at that point. You could see how soft and easy we were to beat on both occasions. It was poor, but I mean, he did get a bit. Well, he got far too long, but I don't know. It's just I struggle to talk about it, to be honest with you. But it was so poor, and then to lose 4-1 in the manner we did, and then I'm sure after that game, Cal McGregor came out and done an interview, and it was just so telling, his full demeanour and what he'd said and stuff like that. For me, he could have went then. He obviously didn't go. I think the Celtic board were probably giving him the benefit of the doubt, but you could see it. And the players didn't even, it didn't look like they knew what their jobs were, and there was no cohesion. Some of the decisions tactically, and then like substitutes coming on, were just baffling. And like you touched on, what's that?
No, I was laughing at what you were saying. They were baffling. I agree with you.
Aye, I know. I thought it'd cut out there. Sorry. It was really baffling, but just nothing was working, and you could see even at that point the disconnect for the guys on the touchline to the players getting the message out there. It was gone at that point, and it was severely embarrassing watching us getting turned over at Parkhead the way we did against. I mean, you look at it now with hindsight. The team that beat us 4-1 finished second to a team that were quarter-finalists in this tournament. But when you're looking at it at the time, Celtic are a bigger club, a better club, and should be beating that team on paper, especially when they were like, it was like their B team, as you say. But it was, for me, he could have and probably should have went then, but it wasn't my breaking point, if you like, but it was probably the point when he should have went.
Yeah, I agree. And I also agree with you on the substitution side of things. I mean, that's been a theme all season. It's just been baffling, taking off attackers for midfielders for defenders, and vice versa. It's shocking how the kind of substitutions have been used this season, especially when you could use 5, which is, you know what I mean, make the most of the attacking options you have on the bench. But coming to yourself, Anthony, give me your lowdown of the Europa League campaign, especially in the group. What was your feeling? Obviously, the defeats. What was your breaking point in this run in Europe, or was that after?
My breaking point was the first. No, it's just scary to say that the first 4-1 defeat to Prague. There's no shame in losing to AC Milan. You know, although they're not the side that they were in years gone by, but they're still, you know, a big name. They're old money, so to speak. And we actually, in both of those games, actually did okay, to be fair. Lille, both games, like you say, who've went on to win Ligue 1. You have to say we played well both those games, but the Slavia Prague home defeat was the night, as Ross alluded to there. Callum McGregor's post-match interview just spoke volumes. That was the night that I remember. I watched the game with my dad, and I says, unless he's gone tomorrow, this season is over. It was so clear that Chris Sutton said it in the studio, these guys have down tools for this, man, and for whatever reason, as we've alluded to, it's maybe a whole range of things, but this group of players were not performing for Neil Lennon and didn't want to perform for Neil Lennon. So that was the last night. At full time that night, the season was still salvageable. The minute that he turned up in the dugout for the following game, it was as good as done.
I mean, as you said, we could see it unfolding, and we always question why the board couldn't see it, and even more so coming to now, how the board are still treating the fans with this discontempt and all this crap about being entitled, and it's just that the shite of been fed this season is absolutely shambolic, to be honest. But coming to yourself, William, the round is off here. This European campaign in Europa League, where we finished, hold on, I get the table up here, should have been prepared. We finished bottom. We won 1 game, drew 1, lost 4, scored 10, conceded 19, which I think was on par with the worst record in
I
Europa
think it
League
was
history.
the worst.
Yeah, it was the worst. But William, give me your rundown of it.
It's just horrendous, isn't it? Well, when we got put out of the Champions League, I mean, there's a dark cloud every time we play these qualifiers in the Champions League, and we've not got the best record, to be fair, and we've still gone on to have decent seasons. So when you're going back to the draw that you have been discussing, I can remember actually sitting with a friend and saying, I really hope we get a lot of the big guns. And, you know, normally in Champions League, you're hoping you get maybe one or 2 big teams, and then the team that you beat home and away, and then hopefully try and scrape through. But I was actually looking forward. I was really hoping we go. I was really pleased with the draw. I thought we've got some big guns here. Obviously, that didn't materialise. It didn't end very well for us, and it was just a shambolic display from start to finish, isn't it? That's it seemed to me as well like there were a few of the games there where we went up, we scored early doors, and in the past you'd think that we're a team that could go behind and come back, but this season it was like we can go 2 or 3 goals ahead and still manage to lose the game. So it wasn't for pleasant viewing. That first 4-1 defeat, I can't believe I'm saying first because there's more than one. The first 4-1 defeat wasn't the point where to be honest with you, I didn't think like panic station. Well, my panic stations, but I thought, well, we'll just have to try and make a good account of ourselves the rest of this group stage. We're still in the 3 domestic cups, can still be a fairly successful season. It was about 3 or 4 games after that. I think we beat Motherwell the weekend after it, and then we went on a run of I think we drew with Hibs and again dropped points another game, and then we got beat 4-1 again. That was a point I started feeling I was like, this is the writing's on the wall here. And then I'm pretty sure, I know we'll go into a domestic season later on, but it was the Ross County game straight after that in the cup, I think. And we got put out of the cup. That was the moment that I'd lost my head and thought, this is enough's enough now. And obviously it dragged on a bit longer than that. But yeah, to summarise, I mean, Europe's what we all lived for when we were younger. The European games were what it's all about. And this season was pretty much the first season in my whole life I can remember where the European games were coming round and I was like, oh, not getting up for it, just thinking we could do without this. To be honest with you, they were the games you always got up for, and I think that just sums up the season. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And you said the domestic form. We're going to move on to that now because I think you guys have perfectly summed up the Europa League campaign, which at the end of the day was disastrous. And what we took away from it was Neil Lennon's comments, Cal McGregor's post-match comments, basically saying he didn't know what he was doing. Looking ahead to the league form before we touch upon some domestic cup like the Scottish Cup and the League Cup, we started off quite well. Beat Hamilton 5-1. Then we had a bit of a skid against Kilmarnock at Rugby Park where we drew 1 each. But again, we haven't really had a good record there recently. Then we went on to win 1-0 against Dundee United, 3-0 against Motherwell, 5-0 against Ross County, 2-1 against St Mirren, 3-2 against Livingston, 3-0 against Hibs, 2-0 against St Johnstone. And then we hit the first Glasgow Derby game against Rangers in October. And up until then, we had one draw, no defeats. And we were informed in kind of domestic terms. And coming to yourself, William, first for this, since you rounded off well last, how did you feel getting into the first Glasgow Derby game? Were you confident? Because for me anyway, regardless of what was going on in the European side of things at that present moment, these games, as we always say, are like form does go out the window because we've seen some shock results in these games in years gone by. I was confident we could get the victory. How about yourself?
Yeah, I was. I mean, like you say, form goes out the window, and I mean, how can you not be confident when we've just had 3 years of absolute top to bottom success? I remember sitting getting excited for that game, thinking this is where we're really going to kick on our season here. And if it's not the worst performance of the season, it's right up there with the worst performance of the season. I don't think I've ever felt as gutted after a football match as I did that day. It was actually deep depression. The wife was like, "You all right?" I actually had to go for a wee power nap on the couch and just try and forget about everything that's just happened before me. We didn't even muster a shot on target, I don't think. Again, set piece frailties. It was just an absolutely shambolic performance from start to finish. Not what we've been used to the previous 3 seasons. Again, I don't think the Rangers, the team across the city, were that great that game either, which made it even worse, made it even more so, it hurt even more. And I mean, yeah, we've been used to success recently, so it does hurt a bit more. But even then, after that, you're thinking there's still plenty of time to go. We'll still kick on, but it just got worse and worse. But yeah, that's the first game I remember being really, really, really properly upset. We didn't even show up.
Yeah, what speaks volumes for me in that game? Connor Goldson, the centre back, scores from 2 set pieces, and we discussed this earlier in the show. It's just a frailty that Celtic had. I think this was the game where he basically put it through Shane Duffy's legs for one of the goals as well. And that's when Shane Duffy's confidence went to bits, because Shane Duffy, for me, started well. He scored in Ross County. He was involved in the run-up to that game anyway, domestic-wise. And coming to yourself, John, you look at that game, as William said, we didn't lay a glove, we didn't get a shot on target. They scored from 2 set pieces. By and large, they did dominate the game, and that was the thing for majority of the Glasgow derbies, apart from the odd 40 minutes here and there when we looked good. But get into the game anyway, form-wise, we were doing quite well in the league. And then this is our first major setback. Did you think then that the league was over? Because sometimes I would be like, we can't lose the first one, because as many former managers and players say, it is a psychological edge that club gets, and I believe they firmly got a shot in the arm from this victory.
No, it was way too early. Like you say, we'd had a relatively recent run of form up into that game, and at that point, I think we went into the game. I was relatively confident. Like William said, it's like you're coming off the back of 9 years of dominating. You've just won 3 trebles in a row. So I mean, you're getting into that game confident. But as William alluded to, it was abysmal start to finish. Never got a shot on goal. The fact that we only shipped 2 was quite surprising when you actually look at it. And it was just an abysmal result. And like William says, I think it's just your heart sank. And like most times where you look at games against them, you always want to win them, obviously. And it's always a shite day when you lose. So you just avoid the likes of social media and everything else, and when everybody starts coming out and talking. But it was still very early on in the season, way too early for me at that point to concede. But I mean, that definitely seemed to be the start of what was where Heeds and everything else started dropping, because the results following that weren't great, and then that's when you started to drop points and you were starting to fall back a bit. And like you says, I think immediately after that we had the Milan game, which is, as you mentioned earlier, there's no shame in losing to Milan, but to then draw against Aberdeen, and then what was it? We had another. Did we not play Lille again after that, which was another draw. Then I think we got a result after that. We got a win, but then we got we got that loss against Sparta Prague, and I think just adding that to the loss with Rangers, and them being so close to one another, I think it just kind of set the tone for the season. And you could see the cracks, like you mentioned, defensively. You could see things were starting to crack and things weren't clicking, and you could see then as well tactical decisions just weren't. They didn't make sense. It didn't seem like there was any thought put into it. It didn't look like we were actually making tactical changes to make any difference in a game. It was just either like for like, or it was just completely baffling. So now I think it was too early at that stage to say, but definitely shortly after that, the sort of games following that, you started to see the cracks.
Yeah, as you said, the after effect of that losing the first Derby game, it is a psychological edge to the team who wins it, and obviously they won that game, and they did remain unbeaten. The third of the Invincibles that we done were the real ones, as everyone says. But going to yourself, Anthony, here, as I said, it is too early. John mentioned that to say maybe concede the league's gone, but I think I am right when you say when I'm saying there's a psychological advantage, and as John said, the results after that weren't great, which is a knock-on effect that Celtic didn't deal with well that time.
Yeah, like John says, it was way too early in the season to talk about, leagues being over or anything like that, but it didn't help. Celtic just didn't turn up at all on the day. If I remember correctly, again, I think that was one of those ridiculous first starting 11. I think he played without a natural striker in that match as well. He started Diego Laxalt, who hadn't played in a number of weeks. He gave him his debut. Just baffling decisions, and set the tone for the rest of the league campaign, really.
Yeah, 100%. What about yourself, Ross? What was your feeling towards that game?
Going into it, I was slightly apprehensive, because if my memory is right, I think we were kind of decimated by COVID going into that game. I think I might be wrong, but I think Christie had to isolate going into that game off the back of the Scotland game.
Edward was out as well.
Edward, aye, well, that's why I was apprehensive, because it was touch and go with him whether he was going to be back. And when he didn't make it, I thought, we're in for a long afternoon here. But like John had touched on, it was too early to concede the league or that. And also I was holding on to the fact that, okay, we lost the game and we lost it badly, 2-0, never laid a glove on them, but we didn't have our full team out. And I remember saying after that game, I said to my dad, who, by the way, is a Rangers supporter,
Wow.
I said to him, Celtic will be back top of the league by Christmas, because that wasn't the Celtic team you played today. And he sort of half agreed with me. He said, no, that wasn't the full Celtic team. And I think the game panned out it panned out worse than I expected, because we didn't even get a shot on goal. But I didn't see us, when Edward was out, Christie was out, I didn't see us winning the game. But I would have, you would take, it's difficult to say you would take a draw. You want to beat them every single time. But seeing the team that went out, you look at it and think, take a draw here this early in the season, then kick on after we get our players back. But again, as we'll touch on it, it just didn't happen. And we never recovered after that, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shambles of a game, Francis, wasn't it really? And the fact that they said there 2 goals and set pieces, the frailties that we were shown at that time, European form wasn't going so great as well. And yes, it's too early to concede the league, and we know after that the run of results was terrible too. But the result of that game anyway, were you still hopeful of a challenge at that point with Neil Lennon in charge?
Yeah, you're still hopeful because, like Ross touched on there, you knew that wasn't a Celtic performance. If you like, it was not one we became accustomed to, even though the season was sort of a stop-start. We were scraping results, if you like, but you just felt we just needed. We will kick on. We'll pick a result up. We'll get us going, which inevitably didn't happen. But yeah, it was like this. We were saying, and it was too early, but I was a wee bit nervous going into the game just simply because of the COVID issues we had and stuff. And like you say, it was just 2 set pieces, story or season. Although, well, the only bit missing was we didn't create any chances. Never mind, lots of chances. But yeah, it was one of the worst performances I can remember against them. One of the worst, and it was like William said. I just wanted to try and forget about that day.
And moving on to the results, as John said, they weren't great after. Went to Batodry, drew for each. Cal McGregor had a brain fart and conceded a penalty in the last minute. They converted it. Many people say that was their breaking point. After that, we go to Motherwell Fair Park, we win 4-1. And then on the lead up to the League Cup game against Ross County, we drew 2 each with Hibs. Now, this was when it was tasty. There was lots of fans clamouring for Neil Lennon to go. There was all sorts of protests going on, not as large as what we're going to talk about in a minute, but that 2 each game, I've heard a lot of people say it on different podcasts and fan scenes as well against Hibs when Laxalt had the score in the last basically kick of the game anyway. Was it, coming to yourself, Anthony, was this game a big factor, do you think, in the season outcome in regards to momentum? Any momentum we could have had, it's just basically gone?
Sorry,
ahead,
Stephen, microphone was muted there, sorry. That whole period was just, it was really tough to watch. You know, we just seemed to be dropping points right, left and centre. The team didn't really seem to know what they were doing on the park. It was just sort of 11 individuals out wearing the same jersey. I did sort of hope that, you know, we did kind of think, oh well, a home draw against County in the couple. After that, you know, we'll kick on from there. Not foreseeing the disaster that was about to unfold and all the ugly scenes that happened after it. Just a god awful point in a god awful season.
I think as well that Hibs game before the Ross County game, as you said, you think a Ross County home draw Anthony would be kind of not easy, but a winnable game by hopefully a bigger margin of goals. And you're looking at it, Ross, thinking that Hibs game. My breaking point was way up before that anyway, but that Hibs game for me, it was almost as if it was, I don't know, like fate that this season wasn't going to go to plan, especially going after the 10. It just seemed to fold like it. Just like shape, really, didn't it?
Aye. I mean, when Laxalt scored the equaliser at Easter Road, I remember like no even celebrating. I gave a sarcastic "yay" with a clap, and that just like said everything about it. I was just like, "This is like." I think we were only something like November, and I was sitting there thinking, "This is done. It's done now." Do you know what I mean? It's that, and we'll touch on it. But Ross County for me, that was probably the final straw for me. It was building and building and building, but after we lost that game, I basically just hit the fuck it button. Started comfort eating and everything. It was just that was the weight gain started, and but fuck it button was hit.
I don't know. I don't know the amount of times, as you said there, where I've ordered a takeaway after a Celtic game just because I'm fucking depressed. Like, being honest, it's shite. Like, and you have to comfort yourself somehow. You couldn't go out to the pub for a pint, but come to yourself, Francis. Laxalt scores that goal in the 91st minute, last kick of the game. Now, flipping a wee bit here, do you think going into that Ross County game, the League Cup game, which, by the way, back then, that lead up, it wasn't a big game. It should have been a routine game. Get into Ross County, beating them, getting in the next round, because we've experienced winning cup games so routinely over the last couple of years or so. But do you not think that could have worked in another advantage for the team, where it could have given a kind of momentum or a bit of a push, because they've got that goal. They didn't lose the game, they drew, but it's still a bad result. But then the day they come back and they got the draw.
Yeah, I get the angle you're coming from, Stephen, and normally I would agree to say that it can give you a wee kick because you've not actually lost the game, but the level of your performances, and there was too many results like that we were just scraping a draw to say that could give us a kick. It was just a wee bit of the story of the season, I feel like. And then just going into the Ross County game, you're thinking, for me, I was looking at that game going, right, get a result here, it's in a cup game, we'll have a go at it, and then that'll be the game. But I feel like I kept on saying this will be the game we'll kick on, this will be the game we'll kick on. Then obviously the Ross County game didn't happen, then you go to the next time. It's just, yeah, that felt like what I was doing up until maybe late November and early December. I was looking at every big game going, we'll kick on the next game, and it just, still waiting, and the season's over.
This will be the week we appoint Eddie Howe. This will be the week
I fully knew that was the signs were there early doors.
Coming to yourself, John, about this Hibs game, the lead up to the Ross County and all what was seen there in terms of fan protest, but just touched upon the Hibs game. How were you feeling at that time? Because, as I said, a lot of Celtic fans were of the same opinion that, as Francis said, this is done. And then you're thinking to yourself, maybe we can get a run together. There's always that wee bit of element of hope in your mind. And again, it just goes to shit. There's just nothing from the players. The players that gave up. The management team are sitting looking at a laptop. I don't know what they're looking at. I mean, any of you guys got any ideas? I mean, there's a few blue movies maybe kicking about. But what about yourself, John? How do you feel around about that time?
I think I just pretty much the same as everybody else. You obviously up until the last minute when Laxalt scored, it was just the head was in the hands, and you were just thinking, what a disaster this is. Obviously, scoring that goal and then salvaging a point out it, you're still thinking there's still plenty of time. You're not expecting Rangers to go the full season, the league campaign unbeaten, so you expect that at some point they'll drop points. We still need to play them another few times. So I wasn't conceding the league or anything at that point, far from it. But I mean, it wasn't looking good. And you, again, like the Rangers game, you were seeing cracks in that Celtic squad. And then, like you mentioned, immediately after that, you're getting pumped 4-1 off Sparta Prague's B team. I think everybody then is kind of like just get a really bemused, confused look in their face, wondering what the hell is going on. And then you're losing to Ross County in the second round. So I definitely by that Ross County game, I don't think, for me, the Hibs, it was still very early. It wasn't great. I mean, you don't like drawing, but you want to win every game. But again, still plenty of games to play for, still plenty of points to play for. But like I said, you're then going in, you can see cracks. You're then going into the Sparta Prague game, getting absolutely annihilated, and then you're getting put out the cup against Ross County, and at that point you're just thinking, what is actually happening here? This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Before we move on to Doomsday, the Ross County game, William, give me a pragmatic point of view here about that Hibs game. What was there an angle you could take from it? As I was trying to say to Francis, that it could have been a jolt, getting that last minute goal. They didn't lose the game. Kick on from there, get a run of victories together, and try and make a challenge for this league.
Yeah, I was jumping out my seat and screaming when we scored that last minute. I'm a glasses half full type of guy, so even when we had like 10 games to go and we were like 20 points behind, I was still thinking like, we'll beat them twice and then they'll drop points and that. So, aye, that was close. That was close to breaking point. I was right on the edge then. But it was, I know you're going to go on to it, but it was a Ross County result that tipped me over the edge. It was so frustrating because we've all had that group chat and every one of us was pouring our hearts out in the group chat each game that day, that space of day, that like 46 weeks, every game it was just like, I can't take anymore. I can't take much more of this. It's the same shit every game now, and it was so frustrating to watch. But no, at that point, I was still there. I still thought we had a chance. and even again after, like Ross County was the breaking point for me where I thought Lennon had to go. But even after that, I still thought we could have still went after the league, and even when the league was done, I still thought we could have won the Scottish Cup. So I think I need to go and see the doctor and get some sort of medication because it sadly was not to be.
Right. We'll move on to the Doomsday. We'll move on to the Ross County game at home. League Cup. Second round, by the way, which is absolutely diabolical. Ross Stewart and Navkavidi scored for Ross County. I'm led to believe he's Scottish. That's a weird Scottish name. But
did you say Rod Stewart there?
I forgot
no, Ross Stewart.
Rod Stewart and Maggie May got up for the header in the second.
Maggie May got up. But coming to yourself, Francis, first, right? What was seen? It was absolutely disgraceful. I mean, I think Ross County could actually won the game by a more comfortable margin. If my memory serves me correctly, they had not an easy game, but just kind of their own tempo, their own pace. Again, there was nothing from us in terms of creating loads of chances or trying to score goals. Maybe the odd shot from Christie playing rugby. But come to yourself, Francis, about this before we move on to the protest. This was the straw that broke the camel's back, wasn't it?
Well, for me, it was the game where I wanted Lennon gone because similar to William, is as much as I maybe wasn't as optimistic as him in the league campaign, I still thought if you change the manager, then you're giving him plenty of time to have a go. But yeah, like you said, the League Cup game, it was Ross County could have actually won it by more, and just to try and sort of, if you look at it different, like. In fairness, it was our first domestic cup competition we'd actually lost in 13. That's in the last 13. And normally you would have been like, you'd have been annoyed because you've just lost a cup game and that and stuff. But it was the fact that we'd got off to such a bad start to the season. The league campaign was not great. The European campaign was not great. So you were almost looking at the cups to try and cling on to for the season to try and give yourself a run. So, like in normal circumstances, if you'd had a good start to the league, you were up there challenging or top and then doing well in Europe as well. You don't accept losing a cup game, but it's a wee bit easier to take. But yeah, it just led to obviously the shocking scenes after that, which I know we'll go on to, but. Yeah, it was a dark day, that game for Celtic Football Club.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that game for me was just a disgrace. Epitomised our season. Apart from, the Derby failure, European campaign failure, the league failure, finishing the season trophyless. William, it's just shocking, really, isn't it, that Ross County came to Celtic Park and they could have won by more. The protests outside that followed. Where are you with that anyway? Like the protest side of things, and obviously the result. But I believe in protest. I don't want obviously violence at Celtic Park, but the fans needed to stand up and be counted, didn't they?
Yeah, totally agree. I'm all for protest too, and especially with the disconnect this year from the fans and the board. I think that there was nothing else to do but protest and to make your voice heard. I think they went about it the wrong way. I think the violence and all the rest of it was definitely the wrong way going about it. But especially when we were in the middle of a pandemic. But I do agree that I'm not no qualms about protesting, especially at that point in time. We were all that's the height of the anger. That was the peak where the Ross County game for me anyway. It was that's when I felt angry. It was, the months preceding it, it was felt like it was more, just more disappointment and frustration rather than anger. Like you kind of went through all the emotions this season, but yeah, that was the game that put the nail in the coffin for me.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. And Anthony, come to yourself, Speed Merchant. How are you? So you're looking. You're looking at this game, the Ross County game. I'll talk quick for you, okay? You're looking at this Ross County game, right? And the things have followed, and we're going to move on to after the New Year stuff they got in terms of Dubai, and briefly talk about that. But how are you feeling at this point?
I must admit, as disgusted as I was with the performance on the park, I thought the scenes outside were disgusting and were rightly condemned by the majority. I don't have I've absolutely no issue with anyone protesting or making their voice heard or anything like that. But when you're just using a team's poor performance to attack police fans and whatnot, it was a disgrace, and it's not the first time this season, unfortunately, that whilst the subject matter might have been something that we could all get on board with, these the Me Brigade or the Green Brigade, as they like to call themselves, made it all about them. I was absolutely disgusted with the scenes. I must admit, throwing stuff at players, going to their cars, and all that. It was pathetic. That tiny minority let themselves down as much as everyone, much as all the players did on the park that day.
Yeah, I agree, but I do think there has to be a point where you have to protest. I mean, if we didn't protest, nothing would be changed, John. And I know you're one that advocates protest, like myself, and you need to stand up. And I don't agree with violence, obviously, but do you think the fans are right to come out after that game, John, and express their disappointment?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one, Stephen, because, like you said, at this point you're at the height of a pandemic, and obviously any sort of gatherings like that were frowned upon across the board in all facets. So I think that in itself just kind of you're immediately starting off in the bad foot. But I firmly believe, as you all know, and I'm certainly not quiet about it, protest I think is important. And fans, they reserve the right to protest, but they, like Anthony says, the way in which a small minority of the fans that did turn up to protest conducted themselves was absolutely disgusting. I mean, it's one thing shouting abuse at somebody. I think we're all guilty of shouting at the telly and calling players all sorts when you're in the middle of a game and they're making silly decisions. But I mean, to go there and then start, like you say, start attacking, throwing stuff, attacking police, hitting the bus, the vans, all that. That kind of carry on is absolutely disgusting, and that should never have happened. And like I think Anthony summed it up perfectly. The actions, the fans that were responsible for that, was far worse than what we'd just seen on the football park. But I mean, it just kind of that day in itself, from the result to what happened after it, was just an absolute disaster.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. Ross, if you had anything else to add about that game?
The game or the protests?
Anything? Let's get it out there.
I mean, as regards to protests, I've kind of touched on the game, but as regards to protests, I thought they were tasteless and embarrassing. I mean, every Celtic supporter was hurting, and I'm all for voicing your opinion, but you can't be cutting about carrying on like that. There's just no excuse for it. That minority yobs basically brought shame on the club, and in the end, it only helped lengthen Lennon's stay execution. So it just made matters worse. It never helped one iota.
Yeah, you're right there. This thing continued in terms of bad results right into the new year, accumulating in that pathetic Dubai trip that should never have happened, although it was okay by the government. Never beat for another Glasgow derby, the 2nd of January. We get beat 1-0. And that's when I thought the season was over. And Anthony, you look at the Dubai trip around about that time. Obviously, it was after that game. I think they went straight after the defeat in the Glasgow derby. But that for me, the start of January, was when you're thinking, this league's over. He needs to go. What's going on? And it's continued right up until he left. The board's just failure to act on anything.
Yeah, I think sort of after their refusal to sack him after the first Slavia Prague game or the Ross County game, I almost sort of absolved Neil Lennon of any fault, because it was now purely in everything that was happening was the fault of the people leading the club, because it was their decision to make and they didn't make it. So, but yeah, the Dubai trip is symbolic of everything that's wrong with the current leadership at Celtic and everything that went wrong this season. I just assumed that it wouldn't have been going ahead this season just with all the pandemic restrictions. And then after the defeat at Ibrox, obviously Neil confirmed that they were getting ready to go to the airport. And again, you don't want to sound all mystic meg about it, but you just knew the way our season was going that something was going to happen over there. And yet it turned out a guy who had been injured in the previous game and had no business being there ended up testing positive and having to make the rest of most of the rest of the team self-isolate. To do all that and drop further points in the league, and just when you think it can't get any worse, that the Dubai trip could, and everything around it couldn't get any worse, we then sent Neil Lennon out in front of a packed press office, to which unfolded probably the most embarrassing 15 minutes of a press conference that a Celtic manager's given in a long time, with the exception of maybe the fair point that he made about the difference between them being condemned for going and obviously the Scotland players being lauded for celebrating the night they qualified for the Euros. The rest of it was an absolute embarrassment. Every bit as embarrassing as the Yobs, as Ross rightly called them, out with the ground the night of the Ross County game. It was unhinged. It was erratic. It made Boris Johnson look credible.
What accumulated after that? What accumulated after that, William, was that they came back. Celtic came back, obviously, and because Julian went, he tested positive for coronavirus. A whole basically first team had to self-isolate. We go through the whole of January, 1-1 against Hibs, 0-0 against Livingston, 2-2 against Livingston again, and we got our first win at the end of January against Hamilton, and they got beat on the 30th of January by St Mirren 2-1. So we had one win in the whole month of January, William. And that is you throw in there, obviously, the pathetic Peter Nowell apology that was just scripted and full of shit. But Anthony's right. That they're accumulated all this shit after it, and the board still treated us fans with this discontent.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, what more can you say about it? It was a shambles that they went in the first place. I thought I'm not Andy Walker's biggest fan, but that game, when we came back, I think it was Livingston, beforehand he went on a rant for about 10 minutes about how shambolic it was and how the fans are paying money for season tickets and they're not even getting to a game, and these players are swanning off for a jolly, pretty much. And they might say it's no jolly, but Big Julian was there. So if it's a training camp, then why the hell is Julian going when he's done his knee? And especially now looking back, when you've had this pathetic, we'll give you a £50 voucher for the store with your season tickets. Surely the money that they've chartered a flight and all the rest of it for these guys to go away to Dubai could have easily went towards the fans and the life and blood of the club to give them something back. It was just it's just I can't fathom who made the decision to go ahead with it.
What are we going to say there, Ross? I thought you were going to chirp in there.
It's just I hate that when people use the word jolly about that. It grinds on me. It wasn't a jolly, but I mean, for me, as regards the Dubai trip, I mean, however you dress it up, it wasn't illegal. It was sanctioned by the government. Then the goalposts got moved when they were away. Now, I accept with hindsight maybe that they probably should have just left it and stayed put. But the only thing Celtic done wrong for me probably was morally, as regards because like they were going away and people couldn't get away and stuff like that. But I mean, it was nothing more or nothing less than that. I think it was all done with the best intentions, and the treatment for the club, for the government, media, and some of our own fans, I thought was nothing short of disgraceful and way over the top. Every time Celtic gave the media a stick this year, and I mean, believe me, there's been a lot. They've pounced quickly and unjustly at times to beat us with said stick. Now, I accept that I would accept that to an extent, providing the treatment to other clubs that we'll no mention was on a par, but it never is, and it's never been more apparent than this season. Complete and utter double standards from top to bottom. Now, where's the morality in that?
But I take your point on board, Ross. But I mean, you look at it at that time. We lost the Glasgow Derby game. They go to Dubai. If you look at any fan across the country, no one could go anywhere. No one could visit loved ones. No one could visit grandparents or mums and dads. People can't gather in rooms to even celebrate Christmas at the time and sadly take themselves off to Dubai. And that situation for me, Ross, anyway, you have to read the room. You have to be with your fan base. You have to show solidarity.
That's why I says that the only thing Celtic were guilty was probably morally going there, because what you've just touched on. That's what I meant by that.
No, that's fair enough.
As regards everything else, I don't think it was done with the best intentions. I don't think they broke any laws. They were given the green light to go, and then boom, it was like they came. The media were all over it, and for what? And the government just kind of faded away into the background, we never sanctioned it kind of thing, and because they moved the goalpost. All the government had to do was say, look, because I think Celtic went on, I don't know, maybe the Monday or something like that. I can't mind the exact days, but it was maybe a couple of days they were away, and then the government changed it. All they had to do was make the call to Celtic and say, look, we're going to change the rules here, so to speak. I would advise you don't go now. But they didn't do that, and then sold them down the river.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, we have seen a lot of media bias, government bias towards Celtic Football Club this season. We can all see it. Obviously, certain people won't believe it, but it's all there out in the open to see. And Francis, come to yourself quickly. That their Dubai trip accumulated not bad running results, kind of finishing the season for us. And you're thinking then, surely they can make the move, change the manager, get the new manager in, get him set up with this team, see what he wants to change, and move on to next season.
Well, just to quickly touch on it, I agree with a lot of what Ross is saying, but Kennedy did come out and admit there was COVID rules broken, and also I'd the picture of Brown and we've just been beat off Rangers again, and then I think that put us 17 points behind. In the first picture you see Celtic is Brown and Lennon sitting at the pool having a pint. And I appreciate again not illegal. No, I'm not saying that though, but it's reading the room. You just didn't want to see that. You didn't put yourself in that position where somebody can take that picture and sell it to a paper. It wouldn't have happened under Roy. I just think it was a severe lack of professionalism. If they want to have a drink, go and do it in a wee function. Go and do it in a function hall or something. Do it away from the cameras where somebody can take a picture.
The trees outside.
Aye, but it goes to that the term that you hate, the jolly. That's what it kind of looks like to an extent. I mean, that's the first the first picture you see of your captain and manager after just getting beat again and going 17 points behind is him having a pint. I just think it was totally. It was a lack of professionalism. It's just you shouldn't have seen that under the situation.
We'll agree to disagree.
Well, I actually agree. I never agree with Franny, but I actually agree with him for a change.
What about yourself, John? What's your feeling before we move on here about this trip?
Actually, I agree with Ross. I still should we have went? No, but we did. Like you said, it was sanctioned by the government at the time we went. And I mean, what else can you say? Any one of us, if we had the authority or the tournament says that you can go on holiday, you can go here, or whatever the case may be, people would have went. People were still jumping to get out and break COVID rules themselves. So even in the midst of all these other lockdowns, so it was sanctioned. They went, and while they're there, they've got a day downtime. They're entitled. I mean, if it was me, try and stop me having a pint. And this talk about
John, I'm
Franny,
not saying didn't have a pint. I'm not saying
no, but I'm
pint,
saying
didn't be seen. Didn't be seen having a pint. Well, I seen it was in the paper, but then you'll not believe that because you didn't believe pictures. Didn't put yourself in a position to get a picture taken.
Nah, I don't agree with that.
But I mean, I would see the point of calling it a jolly and stuff if they were maybe.
I'm not calling it a jolly. I'm not calling it a jolly, but there was plenty.
No, I know,
pictures.
but if there was maybe empty pint tumblers all lying about round about them, but It was a casual pint. They could have been sitting talking about tactics and what they were going to do in training the next day and
It
having
could
a
have.
one-to-one
Yeah,
outside
and I mean,
the dressing room.
look at it.
The narrative was just painted off a pint because people want to jump on things and think the worst of things and like make up their narrative for their story. And
You've never seen it
it's
under
just
Rodgers.
shite,
That's
man.
all.
I
Never
totally
s-
agree. I think if you look at it,
Well,
and it's
but
you
Rodgers
compare-
didn't manage Celtic in the middle of a pandemic, so it wasn't
He
as
was the one that
it
started the
wasn't
Dubai
as
trip. He was the one that started the Dubai trip.
Look, can I just say as well? Like I said, I agree with what Ross is saying. I think it was blown way out of proportion. The players are away
I
on a
agree. It
training
was
thing.
probably
They're in.
propulsion, but you just
I-
didn't put yourself in a
definitely
position.
was.
Just didn't
And
put yourself in that position.
No, and the worst thing about it is the fact that it gave then the green light to turn around and say, well, all these players now need to self-isolate because you were away during such and such a stage of lockdown, despite the fact that they allowed it to happen in the first place. If, in all honesty, if the Scottish government were to do anything, it should have been off flights in and out of the country should have been stopped well before that, but they didn't. And they've only got themselves to blame. But for Celtic as a club to go away, as they have been doing, going to Dubai, that's not out with the norm. I don't agree they should have went because there is people who were stuck indoors. They couldn't go out. They couldn't go and see loved ones, friends, family, all the rest of it. Weren't able to enjoy themselves. So when whoever this person, whichever paper he worked for, or whoever he is, who knew that Celtic were there, were waiting for an opportune moment to get close to them, breaking rules himself, no doubt, taking this picture, and then that getting widespread, it just gave people, like you said, Franny, I understand what you're saying because you shouldn't have put yourself in that position, but they're entitled to sit
I'm not
outside at a
disagreeing with
hotel and
that.
have a drink.
We talk about the board no reading the room. I don't think the Celtic players and manager read the room that day.
Nah, this is the final thing I'll say on it is, given the fact that it was sanctioned and they were out there, and with their downtime, they're entitled to sit poolside and have a drink.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I agree.
The picture that came out, people jumped on it, and the reaction to it was ridiculous.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do now, guys, I'm going to put my running shoes on and zoom through a few things here, bring us towards the end of the season. Now, what we're seeing here accumulating was that bad run of results. We got beat 2-1 on the 30th of January by St Mirren. Fast forward to the 21st of February, we could beat 1-0 against Ross County, basically a bogey team this season who have spanked us a lot. But not long after that, Neil Lennon left post, and then came Mr. Kennedy, and he came in to take interim charge of Celtic. And again, it resulted in different results. Draws, we drew against Rangers in the Glasgow Derby, 1-6-0 against Livingston, 1-8 Aberdeen, spanked off Rangers 4-1. Oh, that's terrible. And I think he won in the total 4 out of 10 games in charge, one being against a League One team in Falkirk. Yeah. So we'll come to that, and I'll come to yourself, Wyndham, here, touching upon that Scottish Cup that you said you were confident in regards to maybe getting somewhere with it. And we get pumped out by our Glasgow Derby rivals, Rangers, who, again, we didn't lay a glove on all season. They beat us 2-0. And I'll come to yourself for this, William, first. I want you to sum up your feelings to this season, how it ended, and where we are now as a team.
As low as we possibly could be. It's actually got worse when Lennon left. I think I speak for everybody when there was a collective sigh of relief, and we thought we're going to get somewhere. But where we are now, we're actually worse off. I'd have much preferred. It's genuinely been how many weeks now? It's been just weeks and weeks of in the dark.
9 weeks.
I would have much rather they actually just said, you know what, Lennon's going to take us to the end of the season. If they knew this was a situation, obviously in hindsight they might not have known it. I'd much rather they just said if he's into the end of the season, then they can, and then nobody would be questioning where's the new manager or the rest of it. We know Lennon's at the end of the season and that's it. And not much has changed. Obviously, it looks like they were wanting Kennedy to come through and win every game and win the Scottish Cup, and then he could have been the saviour in the showers. But that's not the case. So it's just been an absolute shambles. If you told me at the start of the season that we would win absolutely nothing and Kilmarnock win a double, I'd have put you in a straitjacket and laughed at you. St Johnstone, sorry. St Johnstone won a double, I'd have put you in a straitjacket. it's just been a complete and utter shambles, and I've never wanted an ending, a season to end so much, and like I said, I'm a glass half full type of guy, so I'm looking forward to the new manager coming in and us being back where we belong and winning that league title back next season.
Yeah, and now if they come to yourself, and actually before I do, I'm quite disappointed on you like kind of clung on to a Mr. Candy pun there, WWE wrestler.
I was just waiting. When you were coming to me, Stephen, I was going to. I loved that wee pun there. I actually quite liked him when he was on the WWE, so I was going to give you credit for it.
I've been coming to yourself, much like William. Give me your overall feeling towards how the season ended, like I described there, being in the Scottish Cup again, and your hopes for next season, and how you feel we are as a team now.
Yeah, like Wally said there, it maybe actually wouldn't have been the worst idea just to keep Lennon in post until the end of the summer, because it would have stopped all this constant gossip with regards to who would be taking over. It would just be a case of get this season out of the way and then we can move forward. Yeah, I mean, as Wally says, I mean, if you took a knock to the head last summer and only woke up now in your hospital bed and somebody explained to you what had happened throughout the year, I mean, you'd just be telling the nurse to put you back under again, wouldn't you? It's been it's disastrous. Doesn't even sum it up. It really doesn't. Hopes going forward, as I say, hopefully by this time next week, although I've been saying that for a while now, the new manager will be in place, and things can. And the minute that the second that becomes official, everything starts looking better for me. And I hope sooner the better, personally. But and as bad as it's been since Lennon left, of course there has been the one big thing that's kept us all going, and that's of course been the start of the Endless Celts podcast. So as bad as it's been, we've fair enjoyed coming on here on a Tuesday and Friday and airing more views on the club we love. So I believe next year we're going to be talking about being at the games, what we're going for a pint before and after the games. Adidas no doubt will launch a couple of cracking new tops. We'll have a professional in the dugout. We'll have some new players. Lawwell will be yesterday's news. As Yaz once famously sang, my man, the only way is up. So let's go for next year.
Anthony, you missed it. John will have his own video by that time as well.
Oh,
absolutely, yeah.
It's going to come to that. Thanks for doing that, boys. Come on. Come into yourself, John. Give me your thoughts, your feelings, and your hopes. And also, guys, I mentioned we did secure the quadruple treble during this season, even though it was part of last season. That can't be forgot about, as we always say. Fantastic achievement. I mean, unbelievable record we had in cup competitions up until this season. But John, coming to yourself, end the season, how did you feel? Looking forward to the future.
Yeah, no, so end of season, like William says, I just couldn't wait till it was done. It just seemed to be the longest season ever as well. It's just, you were coming into, like you said, we started this podcast and it's been fantastic and we've been able to still talk about Celtic, but none of it's been good news. We still managed to have a laugh in that and we're still all enjoying it, but it's certainly helped. It certainly helped me anyway in coping with the disaster this season's been, because it's given us an outlet. But it's, yeah, I just couldn't wait till the season was done. And in terms of looking forward, like Anthony says, as soon as the manager's announced, we can start looking forward and then start getting something to be excited about again, and then just getting things back to normal and getting back on top where we should be.
Yeah, 100%, John. I think we all echo that. And Ross, coming to yourself, how we feeling?
I mean, I mean,
Except for the happy
but we finished the season there, first time in a long time that we've ended the season without a trophy. But there's better Celtic teams than the current one that have ended the season without a trophy. It happened in, I think it was season 02-03 when we got to UEFA Cup final and stuff. But I mean, it's the way you lose, and the way we've relinquished our titles has been totally unacceptable this season. But it's how you come back for that, I suppose. And that's the test now. Last season was for wanting a better word, shite. But let's put that behind us. Get back to winning ways. We're Celtic. We keep moving forward. And for next season, I'm expecting, obviously, your man, Eddie Howe, to come in. I expect there to be a fair bit of movement between players coming and going. What else? I think that he's been working behind the scenes already. I really hope that. And I think that standards are going to rise when we get this man in the dugout and working with the players. And I expect the league title back at Parkhead at the very least. I think if we recapture the form that we've had previously, you would hope that we can add a cup to that, but I'm not a greedy person, so I would accept the league title next season, but absolutely nothing less. And they're not that good, so it's going to happen.
Yeah, and come with yourself, Francis. Finishes off.
Just relief that it's over. Really, it's one of the I don't know if it's as bad as the Mowbray season. It probably is worse. I've not actually really properly looked at it, but yeah, it's just glad that it's been such a disaster this season. Just everything we've touched on and stuff. Yeah, it was just a relief that it's done, and just looking forward to next season. Like the guys were saying, it's just challenging on all domestic fronts again. Obviously, essential that we win the league. Or hopefully, although Europe's not essential for me, I do appreciate that we need to. We are Celtic. We need to kind of get a wee bit of respect back within Europe, and maybe being in, as stupid as this sounds, being in the Europa League maybe isn't the worst thing, because you can maybe get a wee run out of that and stuff. But I do, like probably the rest is like the Champions League, and sometimes it's just you're just in there for the glory, and that's it, just to get the big teams. But yeah, just looking forward to next season, because surely it can't be as bad as what we've just witnessed this last year.
Yeah, and from myself, Stephen, the host of the Celts podcast, I want to thank everyone who follows and listens to our show, because, as Anthony and John said, this show was born out of this crap season, and this is a bright spark for myself. We come on to this to vent, to talk, have a laugh, bring on special guests. Speaking of things coming up as well, Anthony has a fantastic spin-off show coming up in regards to youth football, youth structure around young footballers in Scotland and in Europe. Ross has a fantastic spin-off episode coming up in regards to the centenary year the Celtic did so well in. So they're all things to look forward to. And John, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but I want to give you a bit of recognition, because we always do when I can. You're the co-host, and you're the man who gets us up on these platforms, the likes of Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes. And we'll have some fantastic news in regards to the video side of things, which hopefully we will be on soon. So hand over yourself, John. Could you please explain a bit more?
Yeah, so obviously, since this started, 30 odd episodes now deep, not including the specials, obviously, we've been audio only. So for the likes of like Spotify, iTunes, or any other platform that people are listening to us on, it's absolutely fine. But for the likes of people who are looking at us for us on YouTube, you'll be able to put our face to the names, because I think we're ready to move to video. We're getting things set up at the minute, and we should be ready to definitely get into the new season. But hopefully over the next couple of weeks we'll be not live, but we'll be. You'll be able to see us, and you'll be able to actually see us react and talk about Celtic and whatever else is going on. So we're all looking forward to that.
Yeah, which is fantastic news for the channel. And we'll have another special guest lined up, Sam Wardrop. That interview will be available on Saturday, the former Celtic youth captain. And from us at the end of the Celts, we thank you for listening, and we hope it continues for many, many years and seasons to come. And until next time we speak, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.